Welcome. I am excited for this webinar. I love actually doing these. We get to do these once a quarter. We started it last quarter, and this is about meeting our team. And I am super excited to talk today with Bobby and Rory, right? Two of our guys. Bobby, you were actually with us last time, which was great. And I think you had a lot of good positive feedback today. All right, we're bringing Rory in, part of our customer success team, and I'm excited to hear what he has to say, kind of the questions that he gets on that. So, you know, one thing I will say while we're waiting a few more people to come in, because I see the attendees list is still growing, which is good. The weather out here, all three of us are in the Salt Lake City area, and the weather out here has been kind of dreary, you know, when you look outside. I mean, Bobby, what's it like on the west side of the valley?
It's okay. I think we get a little bit worse than in Draper, but it's not too bad today, just a little wet.
Yeah, I mean, Rory and I are in the office here, and you can kind of see out our windows, right? It's just extremely cloudy. I think that most of the U.S. is like just socked in with fog and stuff, according to the news today. So, all right. Looks like we're getting to a normalized state here. So let's do some introductions first. Last time I got some feedback from some different people, right? Some of our customers, and that they wanted to hear more about you guys, right? And your personalities and what you like to do. So, you know, Rory, let me start with you. Tell me what you do. Tell us what you do at Domotz first. Let's go with that.
Sounds good. So I've been with Domotz for 19 months now. I work and focus on customer success here. I think it's the absolutely best place to be here because the best definitions of success are the ones I get from the customers. I had a customer tell me, probably about a month ago now, that Domotz was the least expensive, most effective tool in their stack. And so I've just kind of placed that as my own little banner now to go, okay, that's the customer success goal we go for everybody, right? And so I love that. That's it's part of the joy of working here for me.
Absolutely, I can totally appreciate that. Rory, I got to ask you, man, what is something that you like to do outside of work, right? What is something you're passionate about?
So I'm passionate about learning, so that kind of just spills over into all areas of life. I have a couple of courses I'm really excited for right now. One of them is on how to build your own drone. One of the others, I'm following some YouTube instructions on how to create my own graphics card on a breadboard for electronic PCs. So I'm going to bring that into the office here once I finish on that one. It's not going to be spectacular, but the fact that it's just breadboarded is fantastic.
I'm going to say, watch out NVIDIA. NVIDIA, you're going to take over them, which will be great. That's so funny. I like the fact that you're doing a drone too. That is an interesting industry that there's so many uses coming from that, just in all aspects, right? All industries. So very good. All right, Bobby, same questions to you, man. Tell us how long you've been at.
I've been at Domotz for almost 4 years now, 4 years as of May 4th, I think. It's been a great journey, honestly. It's a company that's helped me really kind of expand my horizons, learn about a lot of different technologies and how things interact. And honestly, it's a great place to be. But enough on that. What do I like to do?
Yeah, exactly. What do you like doing outside of work?
Golf is one of my biggest passions. I try to golf at least a couple of times every month, and I'll actually be playing next Saturday. It'll be probably cold and rainy, hopefully not snowing, but it'll be nice after a 4-month break or so. And fishing, traveling, try to get out of the house as much as possible.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I will say, when you first started, one of the things that you and I did together, which I thought was so great, is we had to do a sales trip out to the Provo River and do some fly fishing. That was a good time, and I fully enjoyed that. I'll always remember that with you, Bobby. I want you to know that.
We got to do that again this year.
We do need to do that again. We got to have another a sales outing. So yeah. Very good. So one thing I want to mention, right? This is a webinar. We're happy to answer questions that you have. You know, we've really framed this up in a way that, you know, I've talked to the guys beforehand and said, hey, what are some of the questions that you often get or that you feel you want to address with the customers? But I also want you guys to ask us some questions too, right? And give us some of the things that are on your mind during this. This is a live webinar, and we will get to those. So that being said, Rory, I want to start with you. First of all, and you kind of alluded to this, but you've been at Domotz for 19 months now, right? What has impressed you about Domotz, right? What are some of the things that you see at Domotz that, when you have used Domotz or talked to customers about it, what has impressed you about this company?
I think one of the biggest things that's impressed me is just that the people here are so effective, right? So across companies that I've worked for, I started as a bench technician. A lot of the webinars we used to go, you'd give one of our value statements saying, hey, we want to get you out of the break fix model, right? I've worked in that model in other places, and it's just a terrible place to work, right? And so as a company, you oftentimes see that on a corporate level as well. And I'm just so impressed when I worked at Domotz that the people here don't do that, right? Everyone's on the same script. So I focus on customer success here, and it's really easy because the teams are already pointed at customer success across the board, across the teams. I've had other career, choices where I've worked with developers, that said, hey, we finished the project you looked for, and you hop in, you go, okay, who in their right mind would want that button here in this industry, right? And I never have that trouble or any sort of those conversations here with the developers or anyone across the team, because it's just not an issue as it comes across. So I mean, everyone's focused, everyone's agile, and it makes it beautiful to work here.
Yeah. The agile process of what we've built here, right? What the development team has done, I think, has made this is a really dynamic company, and I completely agree with you. One of the things you mentioned too, right? You'd been at a company before where you were focused very much on break fix mentalities, and that is so 10 years ago, right? Now, if you're not being proactive and you're not thinking about, trying to be one step ahead of your clients, I think that you're in a difficult position. And of course, we also have to bring that into the tool that we have, right? How can we help be one step ahead? And there's always going to be issues that pop up, right? Things that may not work the way you expect, but that's why we have this customer success team, which you're a part of. So I hear you, and I actually really appreciate the answer to that. Bobby, with respect to that, I got to say, you've been here for quite a while. I love how you started on, you said May the 4th, May the 4th be with you. That's funny.
Exactly.
What has impressed you, right? What have been some of the things that you think we've done well?
I'd say how we handle challenges. There's always things that come up, especially in smaller companies that are trying to scale. And of course, there's the frustrations along the way and figuring out exactly how you're going to get from point A to point B. And usually there's 50 other ways you can go about it. But in the end, I feel like everybody aligns pretty quickly and easily towards a common goal. And I think, like what you said with development being very agile, we've been like that in pretty much every aspect of the business, where whenever something comes up, we get there eventually. Sometimes it can be a painful process, but in the end, I think it all works out, and we learn a lot from it.
I love it. There's certainly challenges. There's always challenges, no matter where you are, right? And that's a very valid point. I do think the way we handle challenges, the way we try to keep in touch with customers, right? Our support team, right? Our customer success team has been amazing when it comes to dealing with different challenges. And look, we're going to be honest, right? We can't solve everything immediately, but what we do for our customers is we keep in touch with them. We let them know the status of these things. So that's very, very positive there. So, all right. Let me ask some more client facing questions. And Rory, I want to start with you again on this one here. Because I think it's a good question. And I think it answers, well, the question speaks to the point about who uses Domotz, okay? In your mind, right, with people that you've talked to, who really succeeds using Domotz? I mean, whether that's the type of customer or the type of company that's there, what's your thoughts on that?
Man, so one of the unique things about working for Domotz, right, is we actually have our foot in a couple of different markets, and so it's so interesting. Occasionally, you'll catch me on the chats and things here, right? And we'll have customers that come through and say, hey, I'm looking for something to know if there are other Wi-Fi's around me, and you're like, okay, this person, is not a technical person at all, versus, companies that have network engineers saying, okay, we definitely want you to utilize Domotz. The things that I've seen that make people successful with Domotz across all the industries really just comes from like finding how to use us in their full workflow, right? We're cheap enough and everything. You can just put us on a network. You can just kind of leave us there. But the ones that I see having that customer success, experience that I hold as my banner, right? Man, Domotz is so valuable for us. They're the ones that have figured out how to get us into their daily usage, right? It's not just well, they're one of the partners we throw on our stack title there and shelfware it.
Yeah. So true. I agree with that. Bobby, what's your thoughts? Because you really on kind of the more sales side, right? Sales engineering side, and you've been with us now for several years, right? So what have you seen with these changes in these different markets like Rory's talking about?
I'd say as we've kind of grown in different industries, I think the common feedback we always get is that whatever tool another company had been using or is currently using, when they get into Domotz, it's a very easy to use tool, but it's not missing the information that they're getting out of the much more complicated tools. So whether it's the changeover process or just going through kind of a proof of concept, they're able to get a lot of the same information, if not more, a lot quicker and a lot easier than with a lot of these other tools. So I think that's one thing that's a huge eye opener to a lot of people. It makes it a lot easier to succeed with Domotz because it's not something that you have to have a full team be completely trained on for months to kind of get up to speed and know how to use it. It's something you can figure out in really just a few hours if you have the time.
And I've said this to many people that I met with, whether it's at trade events or on phone calls. I really feel like Domotz, I'm gonna make two statements on this, right? Domotz has really done a good job of kind of creating this overarching user interface for aggregating data from different systems that are out there, maybe even different tools, whether those are cloud-based networking tools, Ubiquity, Meraki, Bruckus, right? Things that have data out in the cloud that we can grab from. Netgear is another one, or being able to dive deep into those solutions and the systems that are on the network. So that's thing number one, right? We've created this like global tool that's fairly agnostic to the manufacturers that are out there. But then the second thing that we've done, and Bobby, you alluded to this, is tried to create a user interface that is easy to use, such that level one technicians kind of get more visibility and awareness in an easy to use interface. And it helps escalate things if needed, right, on the client systems to the level 3 techs, right, that may be, or even engineering that may be doing something with that data or need to dive deeper. And I think that's an important part of that. And this gets to a question, Bobby, that funny enough that you get that I want to bring up as well. The question that you alluded to was, do you see Domotz being used more by technical or non-technical people? And I'm curious as to how you answer that when you talk to the different customers.
I would say more users are definitely technical, but in a lot of the organizations that I talk to, they're able to get both technical and non-technical people in there, and both parties can make sense of things. The technical people can get the very detailed information, whether it's resource utilization or bandwidth utilization or whatever it may be, while the non-technical people can just look at the network topology map or see if devices are online or offline or the uptime percentage of those. So I think both technical and non-technical people can get a lot of value out of it. And the non-technical people, they don't need to go through a lot of training. They just need really maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Like, hey, click on this button, you'll see these devices, and click on this device and you'll see its status or whatever it may be. So it's not something that you need to spend a lot of time on to train people up on, but then the technical people can keep it as simple or go as advanced as they possibly could.
Yeah, makes sense. Rory, what's your thought, right? You've been doing a lot of calls around our channel partner program and getting people up to speed on things. What's your take on that?
And I actually have to hold myself back at parties occasionally. So I've got a range of friends then, across the technical basis, some programmers, some admins, and then, some just are hobbyists. And And across all cases, I'm always like, oh, yep, nope, you could be doing that with Domotz. You could be doing that with Domotz, right? And so I've never actually had to like hold back from saying, well, this is probably too technical for you, right? We scale really well for the ability to say, hey, I mean, pull out your mobile app. This is just a joy to see versus the, I actually want to have this doing custom things. One of the side projects I want to do at my home is I want to make my washer smart at home, right? And I wouldn't suggest that at parties, but we kind of scale across either way, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to lose friends if you start talking about making your washer and dryer smart. Hey,
Yep.
You do you, Rory. It would be good.
Your washer may be smart, but obviously you're dumb. No.
That's funny. Very funny. Okay. Interestingly enough, Bobby, one of the questions that you put down is a question that Jeffrey here asked us, right? They want a comparison to some of our competitors that are out there. I want to keep it a little bit more general and say, I'm going to point out that, Jeffrey here talked specifically about Aavik, which is definitely a competitor in the network monitoring space for service providers, but we also see competitors like PRTG. We see open source tool competitors like Zabbix and Nagios. I got to ask you, Bobby, I'm going to start with you. What's your thoughts on how we differentiate from other monitoring tools that are out there?
I think one of the biggest ones is the agnostic approach we take to monitoring, because with most other tools out there, they're very focused on networking devices or servers and workstations or AV systems, whatever it may be, and they're very good at what they do, but it's a bit of a narrow focus. Well, with us, we take a very agnostic approach. We don't care if it's a switch, a server, environment sensor, whatever it may be. We can
Rory's washing machine.
Washing machine, a TV. We can work with just about anything, and that helps us in a lot of situations because we're in so many different industries. We have people monitoring like agriculture facilities. We have people monitoring office buildings and everything in between. We even have people monitoring research facilities in Antarctica. Like, that's not something every monitoring tool can say. So I think that agnostic approach is a huge benefit. We can work in so many different environments. And then I think another one is how we approach monitoring in terms of layer 2 versus layer 3, because we can get a little bit more information out of devices, figure out the make, model, and type of devices, which helps with setup so people can get up and running a little bit quicker and don't have to spend too much time on, does this device have the credentials it needs, or does this one have it, or am I missing something, or do I need to import more devices? We try to kind of speed that up and automate things a little bit more. So it's just a smoother onboarding process in general.
Yeah. I fully appreciate what you just said about the agnostic approach, but I'm going to dive in a little bit more on the layer 2 versus layer 3. A lot of service providers are going to recognize many of the different network monitoring systems really being layer 3 type devices, right? Looking at IP addresses, looking at topology maps through LLDP and all that. We take a slightly different approach, and we're more at the layer 2 level. And the reason that that's important is because we really care about the MAC addresses that are out there, but anything that's connected to the network, anything that's creating a footprint on that network. We're taking a different approach to how we build the topology out there. But your point as well about, I'm going to use the ubiquitous term of IoT, is such a critical part of what we do and differentiates us from other network monitoring tools. And it allows us to cross many different segments, whether that is manufacturing, where they're dealing with gateways and let's call them third-party protocols, right, to get to other systems that may not be IP based. We can look at those, we can monitor those. Also looking at integration space, AV equipment, right? We do that extremely well, right? The other aspect that we have is our tunneling into the system, so you can manage those more effectively at the different application layers and whatnot. And I think those are critical parts. I mean, for us, it's a lot of it is about aggregating data and bringing awareness to all the different systems and the sensors that are out there, and we do that in a different way. So I fully appreciate that. Rory, I get excited when I talk about this, but I didn't want to overshadow your thoughts on this. What do you think when it comes to different monitoring tools, and what are some of the things you see?
So I actually get really excited about this as well. You had mentioned that how we approach that on the technological level works so well. And I like that it transfers over to the social side as well, right? You had mentioned that we can remote in and things. One of the things with that agnostic approach that we take is that a lot of times, most of us in the industry are just used to having 40 different tabs open, right? Oh, this is my Ubiquity tab where I go look at things here. This is the, gonna have Wireshark open in a different area, and I'm just gonna go across the board, right? And have all my different tools open for each specific niche use for them. And when we're going across these, it makes so much social sense to use Domotz for a lot of those cases. When users are coming through and saying, well, I need to go connect to that printer, let's go get my HP software out, right? No, right? Just use Domotz to connect through. We bridge that across the technical level, but we bring it into our UI and everything so easily. It really bridges across the social as well. You had mentioned the level 1 versus level 3 techs, right? We just take that starting cost off for most of them. Oh, where's my password manager? Oh, okay, let's go through on these. Well, we make that a lot easier.
Yeah, I fully appreciate that. Yeah, it's a good point. We just got a question, right, on it, which I really love, and it kind of bleeds into this follow-on question. But Emilio's talking about how they leverage Domotz for asset management in kind of an esports broadcast studio, which is super cool, right? New technology. I mean, something you never would have thought of as being an industry, a decade or two ago is now huge. It's a huge industry. Lots of AV equipment. Clearly, the network infrastructure is really, really important. I'm going to say there's also probably lots of sensors or systems that could be utilized, cameras, right, lighting that can be monitored, all with Domotz. So I totally appreciate Emilio providing that. But this gets to a question that you guys asked me or thought would be important, which is, what is something unique that you've seen that our customers use Domotz for, that they monitored? And Rory, I'll go to you first, and then I'll go to Bobby after that.
I think for the unique ways, that always takes me to the custom scripting, right? That smart washer project, right? That's only available because we could do the custom scripts to be able to pull that information in. And so for me, I don't always see it across the industry, but I love seeing customers' usage. I spoke to a locksmith 5 months ago, I think, that uses it across a range of businesses. And because of the custom scripting, right, we could pull information in that was unique to each business use case for them. A couple of times, I think he had a couple of automations going in to help monitor aspects of one of the car washes that he monitored. So not one of the ones that we do on a daily basis. It's not one of the ones you immediately think of, but just wonderful for his use case.
Yeah, interestingly enough, right? Car washes, especially some of the newer car washes, the automated ones, plenty of machines in there that are connected to the network, right? You're looking at sensors like, is my soap levels, enough, full, empty, whatever. There's lighting in those things, right? I go through this, not to give them sales, but Quick Quack car wash, right? That has all sorts of lights, and they have a video display that comes through the soap on my screen. It's just like, it's crazy. But things to monitor. Point of sale systems, clearly critical for them, so I can appreciate that. So interesting, very interesting. Bobby, what's one of the more unique, I guess, applications that you've seen Domotz in?
I'd say one of the first ones that comes to mind is this, probably this integration company based out of Europe. I think in Spain, I could be wrong on that, but they basically use Domotz to monitor yachts of ultra high net worth individuals. So they use Domotz to monitor the Starlink connection for internet and monitoring all the networking devices, the AV systems, the IoT devices. There's actually a lot more to yachts than I was aware of. So it was really interesting to see a real use case with that and have him kind of demo the environment for me so I could see how things were working and how sensitive things were. I'd say that was probably one of the most interesting use cases I've seen. I think another one might just be like manufacturing facilities, how we monitor like both the IT and the OT devices, and how we've been able to handle that a little bit better than some of the other tools out there. I thought that was a huge benefit. It was cool seeing some of the information we could get out of those OT devices. That's, I don't know, I've never seen anything like that before. So it's cool to see that firsthand.
Yeah, when it comes to things like yachts, right, where you're dealing with satellite communications, Domotz actually provides a fairly unique value proposition there, which is the remote connectivity, right? Being able to create a VPN into that, because it's my understanding, and I don't remember all the details of this, but Starlink leverages some interesting natting technology, right? Network address translation, that makes it difficult for you to do any sort of port forwarding at the router level, right? So if in the case of your yacht, you really don't have an easy way to handle remote connections, at least from the router's point of view in creating a VPN. What Domotz does is we create a secure connection from our web servers through the Starlink communications into the collector, right, which makes it more viable. So it is a great way in which our tool becomes so useful there. This leads itself into another question that you guys asked, which I think this is an important one. And Bobby, I'll start with you. You asked, or you get asked the question quite a bit, what's the right information, I would even say maybe sensors, for Domotz to be gathering when it comes to network monitoring or OT monitoring? What's your thoughts on that? How do you usually answer that?
So I think at a basic level, there's very little people have to really do, because we'll get the status, the connection performance info, like latency and packet loss, the network topology map, and other things. But I'd say some of the most important, or I guess need to have type things, would be like resource utilization on devices, whether it's CPU or memory utilization, or disk utilization, or temperatures or fan speeds. Just more information in terms of maybe like device health type details, because that could be really indicative of I don't know, further issues, whether it's a device failing or just having more performance related issues that just leads to more end user issues. And a lot of those things are really easy to configure. We've made that really easy with those pre-configured SNMP templates you can apply to things like a printer for your supply levels, or a UPS for battery information. I think those are all good examples of those extra details that a lot of people may not be aware of that they exist, or know how to get those details. But we make it easy so then they can know, okay, there's this issue that's in the past, the client just called us to let us know, hey, we're having this issue. But now they can be a little more proactive and be on top of those things a little bit better.
That's interesting. Yeah. Very good points. Very good points. Have you, and I'm going to ask you a follow-up question on that, Bobby, with when somebody's wanting to gather data maybe from a system that it's maybe not obvious to them. I mean, what's the process by doing that? I think the audience would like to know, if they want to take advantage of custom scripting, or they have a system that maybe they don't know how to find the MIBs, or maybe it's using RESTful APIs. How do we approach that? What do we ask of them?
I think on my onboarding calls, I'll have them share their screen. We'll look at that device, see if we can gather whatever information they need through SNMP. So I feel like that's one of the easiest ways to do it. But then if it's a system that either doesn't support SNMP or just has APIs available, or you can get it through running commands, then we figure out, okay, what are the, 5, 10 different things you're looking for? And is there something else that could be nice to have that you hadn't thought of? And let's see what our options are in terms of APIs or commands. And then we get into the custom integrations and the custom scripts. And I've done those for other users in the past. Like one, it was kind of a simple ask or a requirement. He basically just wanted to run a command on a workstation, ping a list of IPs, and get latency, packet loss, and status information. So I worked on a custom integration and kind of showed him how it worked and how he needs to apply it and everything. And it took a little bit longer than I wanted it to, because I wasn't familiar with how you had to do that through Windows, but eventually we got what he was looking for. So I think just kind of working out what's the scope of the project and what are the options available in terms of how we get that information. And then from there, it's a pretty easy process. I mean, we can work together, me and the user, and then have the entire Domotz team to rely on as well.
Yeah, I would point out that we do have a team that is actually focused on creating more and more custom scripts. And those of you who have been with us for the last year or more, you've probably seen that we went from having 0 custom scripts available in our app to now, last time I checked, we had over 100, 105 or 106. And it seems like it continues to grow 10 or 20 per month. So I'm very, very happy with the direction that we're going here. Rory, I'm going to ask you the same question, but before I do that, I want to point out that we had one of our customers, Michael, that asked the question, right? And it kind of leads into what Bobby and I were just talking about there, what he was talking about, which is the network monitoring space can be quite overwhelming, right? And here I am asking the question of what should you be monitoring? I want to address Michael's question about complexity in a simple way, which is you really have to keep it simple. There's a lot that you can do. Domotz is an extremely powerful tool. The things that we give you very easily are the things that you should actually focus on from a monitoring perspective. Look at the network infrastructure, look at up and down status, right? Don't be trying to you don't need to look at heartbeats lost, right? That's more advanced. Should you be going into the sensors, right? Should you be looking at hard disk failures, ink levels in printers? I'm going to say that's up to you, okay? But I do want to point out that there is so much value in understanding what's on the network, right? The classification of devices, looking at that assets and understanding that. I mean, that's a critical part of any cybersecurity framework. It's control number one in the CIS controls. So knowing what's on the network is thing number one. The second thing is what are these devices that are on the network doing? How are they connected, right? That's where a tool like Domotz becomes so powerful, and your customers are going to value that. One thing I will say is that when you take Domotz, when you put a collector or activate that on a customer's network, and you've provided it with the proper segmentation or looking at the different VLANs, I think you and your customer are going to be amazed at the number of devices that are on the network that they probably didn't even think about or know about. And that right there is value that you should provide to your customers. So I'm saying that to answer, Michael's question, but Rory, I mean, I'm going to go back to the original question, which is, and actually I'll frame it a little bit different, right? What are the reasons, right, that you think people should be leveraging a tool like Domotz, right? What should they be gathering, right? Does that make sense?
It does make sense, kind of combining both of those together. You hit it right there at the end, right? With that wowing the customer. It's amazing to see what comes through. 2 weeks ago, I was talking to a customer, and the most important information for them out of Domotz, right, is they were trying to convince the offices around them that, we're your partner, right? We're not just an emergency helpline or something. We're your technology partner. And so when they, would get a new device alert on that network, it's so simple to know, but, so easy to do it and set up. But they would wow the customer. The customer would say, that employee hasn't even had time to sit down yet. Like, that's amazing. They did that a couple of times, and now that customer knows, right? Like, nope, these guys are actually watching our network, right? They're getting real-time information. It's not just a name or a customer on a sheet for them. Similarly, I think. Oh, go ahead, JB. That was a thought.
There's so much value in that. I don't think people realize. I mean, especially for a service provider, they usually have some sort of SLA or support level agreement in place, service level agreement in place. Communications to your customer, right? Proactive communications, I think, are just huge. And Domotz is a tool that allows you to do that at the network level, right? The infrastructure level. So yeah, I just wanted to make that statement when you said that. So we'll carry on.
I was going to say 2 other stories on that one really quickly, right? Giancarlo's had a customer that's told him, that proactive stance, right? It's just amazing. When a customer calls and you already know, right? When they say, hey, something's going on, you said, yep, this is what it is before they've, even got a chance to describe it. It elevates you to God status for that customer, right? Oh my goodness, you guys know. And it's powerful because customers, oftentimes the actual customers, that our customers serve, get this wrong so often, right? With just knowing, you were talking about the CIS controls on that one. One of the customers, walked into a place, the customer said, this is what we have on our network. And, after, 30 seconds of having Domotz on the list, they said, well, here are the 2 switches you told me about. And then there's the one in the ceiling that no one actually remembered existed, right? Or
yes.
That server room out in the back that you only have 20 computers. You're sure you don't have the 32 that I'm seeing on here, right? Like, who's monitoring and updating these other ones? It's so powerful. So for the information that you're trying to pull from, right, the information that should be useful for you, it's those items that give the impact to your end customer, right? If you're going to keep it simple, I mean, it's the ones that really, at the end of the day, make a huge difference to let them know that you're their partner.
Yeah. Oh, 100% agree. This actually gets to another question that you often bring up, which is, what are some, I'm going to put it this way. What are some common mistakes that people make? And Rory, I'm going to take this to you first. What are some common mistakes that people, let's call it traps, they get into with respect to Domotz, right? Or the setup of that, the setup of really any network monitoring system, but in particular Domotz. That's for you, Rory.
Yeah, the traps that they get into when they're setting up. I think one of the most common ones I see on our side just involves when they're setting it up, not having any sort of forethought in how to get the alerting out of it that they want, right? Going through and saying, well, Domotz has all these checkboxes, we're just going to check each of them, right? And then I'm getting those heartbeat notifications you were suggesting may not be the best for all customers. I think for me, that's one of the ones, because I'm working right on the post-sales side, right? These are customers that often have already used Domotz a little bit for the customer success side. That's one of the ones that I see the most, is that when it was originally implemented, they didn't feel comfortable taking the time to really consider how to get that into their workflow in a meaningful way for their business. I think Bobby's gonna have very different outlook for where he works with the customers on that one, but that's what I see the most on my side.
I definitely have an opinion too, but I want to hear from you, Bobby, first about that. What's your thoughts on this?
That was actually one of the first things I was thinking of was alerting. Because I'll see the same thing where a lot of people set up the shared alerts and just enable everything, apply it to everything, all devices, all sites, everything. And then they're like, okay, why did I have 300 alerts or tickets created in the last 6 hours? It's like, well, let's take a little more of a refined approach to how we're actually using these. And then we go through and set it all up the way they need it. But I'd say one of the other most common, let's say traps, because it's not really a mistake, but I think trap is a better word for it, is when they get in there, set up SNMP for everything, they go ahead and apply all SNMP templates to everything. Yes. And that can be good for some people. That's a small number, honestly. The majority of people really should be applying every SNMP template, because then it gets to what a lot of other tools do, where they'll have a million lines of information, and it's up to you to dig through the weeds and find the information that's actually actionable and helpful. And I feel like we've kind of built Domotz in a way so that a lot of that important information is up there up front already. And if you need a little bit deeper info, you can get that pretty easily. So I'd say just kind of taking a step back and, like you said, Rory, having a little bit of foresight to see, okay, here's the information I need. How do we set that up? And then from there, is there other information that can help me a little bit more, or find these other issues that we couldn't solve very easily in the past? So that's what I try to kind of cover in all of these onboarding calls, is take a little bit more of a kind of a planned approach, which I know is really hard with people in the tech industry. We like to get into new tools and just go wild, figure out all the features, break things, use everything that's available. But I think taking that a little bit more of a planned approach makes it a lot more effective, because then you get, I feel like you get up to speed a little bit quicker, and you get to where you need to be a lot quicker than if we're just kind of going crazy.
Yeah, I'm going to take a little bit of a step kind of away or up from what you guys are talking about. And I would point out that Domotz is meant to be a tool, right? It's meant to be a tool for you as a service provider, you as an integrator, right? Somebody that is servicing customers. And like any tool, take the example of a hammer, right? A hammer is very, very useful for pounding in nails, but it also can pry out nails. It can make holes in walls. There's lots of things that a hammer can do. I think it's very important that you recognize that with any tool, that it's really there to help you be better at your business or your service. A hammer is really, really great for carpenters, right? It's really, really great for house builders, right? They do different things, they use it in different ways, but ultimately there is a process and a methodology for how you use that tool. I find it interesting, right? Both of you guys help with kind of onboarding, and whether it's on the pre-sale side, right, with you, Bobby, or it's on the post-sale side with you, Rory. And I think one aspect that you both run into is we want to show everything, right? All the capabilities and all the power of this amazing tool. But then we also have to take a step back and say, hey, Mr. Customer, what is your process, right? How would you like to use this? What are you trying to get out of this? And we have to have that discussion in order to say, hey, you have a problem. Here are ways in which you can solve this. Let us help you. And I think that that's one of the things that you guys do an extremely good job of, is when it comes to listening and understanding what the challenges are that the customer has, but then figuring out how can we implement this. And in fact, I was just looking at one of the questions that we got from, I believe it was Alejandro, right? He was talking about how can he create templates for these. And some of this is what you guys can do, right? How can we create pre-configured sensor templates from an SNMP point of view? How can we create custom drivers? But also, right, when you use, and this is an important part of our multi-tenancy, once I have created a customer or I've got a particular site that I use and leverage as my kind of golden template, how can I push that type of template across all of my sites? And we have easy ways of doing that, and you guys, I know you show that to the customers, so it's great, it's great. Another question that you guys get, and I think, Rory, you probably see this the most, right? But we have, I want to say 15, if not 16 different ways that you can now host the Domotz collector, right? You can put it on Windows, you can put it on VM, you can put it on the Domotz box. We've partnered within the last few quarters with Protectly, right? That has a solution. The question has to come up is, which is the best and why? So Rory, how do you address that?
Yeah, no, I love this one. So in my lab, oftentimes I'm just using the Domotz box. There are limitations. I'm always welcome to talk to customers about that for what it can do, because it's just a cute little embedded device, right? But that's part of the joy as a turnkey solution for it. There are some customers I've seen where they're getting the most value out of Domotz because they're actually including other tech on the stack as well. And so something like the Protectly box is an awesome host for them because they have the control of it. It is a turnkey for Domotz. They don't need to do any sort of configuring, but it gives them a landing point to install some of the other value enriching tools that they use for their customers. I'm always kind of a tech minimalist as well, right? I think one of the best hosts is the host you already have. So, if you have a server on site, I think it's absolutely wonderful to use it there. Usually the biggest question I get into with customers, I'm always just curious about the security posture that they're using at their sites, right? Because that's going to really influence where you want your Domotz collector in your network. And so the host that you can use, that server may be great, but it may be all the way down at the end of the line, right? Which, works, it definitely can, but depending on how many networks you want to monitor across, how many segments you're looking for your host, finding a solution that's a little bit closer to your router or your gateway may be a better solution for you. And so there are lots of fun ones. I always encourage customers to call and talk on that one because I love going over the hosts.
Yeah. Bobby, what's your thoughts, right? You feel with that, especially from a pre-sales side and kind of setting up demos. What's your take on that?
Well, I think I'm going to steal your line, Rory, that the best host you can use is the one you have. I don't know why I haven't thought of saying something like that, but I love it, so I'm going to steal that. So, I think that's perfect because that's the truth. Because what I tell everybody is the best option is the one that's easiest and makes the most sense for you. Because you don't have to go one direction or another. You don't have to only be Windows or NAS drives or the Domotz box or whatever. I'd say probably 95%, I have no idea the exact number, but let's say 95% of all of our users have a mix of different collectors out there. They might mostly focus on Windows, but they probably have a couple of VMs or Domotz boxes or whatever it may be. Even in my own house, I have a Domotz box, a Synology agent, and a Windows agent. So clearly I can't make a decision on which one is better, which one I prefer. So it's really just whatever's easiest and makes the most sense for you.
Yeah,
I want to jump back in just really quickly. One of the tech solutions that I've implemented in the past in my career involved using a Cisco ASA device, right? And for most of the places that we were implementing, the customers were not tech savvy, and so they'd have an MSP, and the MSPs hated it, right? They're like, why is this vendor requiring you to use specific hardware like this, right? And it was the worst, right? Can't we put a sonic wall in? Please let us use some sort of different firewall in place here. And by standard for what our team supported and everything, we didn't. And I love that that's not an issue here at Domotz, right? use the solutions that you're looking for, that you have access to. If you're already installing a NAS, put Domotz on that NAS.
Yep. Yeah. It's interesting. I was looking at the chat messages that we got, or a question that came in, and Melson's was talking about VLANs and how they monitor this. And this kind of lends itself into this question that we're talking about hosts and how you set this up, right? One of the biggest challenges that I think you have with certain hosts are getting to that layer 2, right? That segmented network. It's way more difficult to do it on an embedded system like Synology, right? That's a NAS drive that's out there, or QNAP, right? They both have their challenges. It can be done, but you're really having to dive in. You're really having to manipulate the host operating system, right? Which, a lot of times they don't really like. In the same vein, right, the Domotz box probably makes it the easiest out of any of the solutions, because we own that operating system. We fundamentally own the NIC, and we've built it into our UI to allow you to easily configure the NIC to see the different VLAN tags. On the other side, Windows, right, or of this little triangle that I'm building, Windows is super easy to deploy, but it depends on the network bridge, right, that you're using and what you have to manipulate if you want to get into the layer 2 side of things. And those are all just challenges that I think you have to deal with and you have to recognize. So yes, I mean, there's no one simple answer. I think the best thing you can do is look at the process, look at what you have in your environment, see if you're willing to pay for a separate dedicated piece of hardware like a NUC or that Protectly box, or you just want to take advantage of Windows servers or other Linux machines that you may have out there. So it's good. Let me ask a little bit about the application side of things. Rory, you often get this question, and people may not realize this, but Domotz is quite flexible on the application side, right? The user interface that you have into Domotz, right? How we present the information that's being stored in the cloud can be done through web apps, right? Your favorite browser. It can be done through desktop applications on Windows and or Mac. We also, and a lot of people still don't realize this, but our phones, right? We have a mobile app for that. And I think that we should talk about that, right? Is there one web application or the desktop application that is better than others? And Bobby, you gotta clean your camera. I don't know what happened there, but you went all fuzzy.
Yeah, I don't know. Trying to get it to refocus.
Peter didn't have its copy this morning. Oh man.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Rory, that question is towards you.
So for the application, I on a day-to-day basis working here at Domotz, right? I almost strictly use the web browser. For me, that's really easy because if I need to get into the APIs or anything, there's some really fast ways that I don't have to do like device calls to figure out what the device ID is from the API. I can just grab it right from the web browser. I show that on calls fairly often for customers that I'm just introducing to the APIs. But I've had some customers tell me recently that the desktop app is faster. If I haven't had a good chance to run tests on that yet and get actual data from that, I'm kind of excited to do it. But I know some, yeah.
I use the desktop app all the time because it is a little bit faster, right? Because I'm dealing usually with a little bit larger networks and stuff. But yes. I appreciate the URL, right? When you're looking on the web browser, will show you your agent ID. It'll show you your device ID if you're looking at specific devices. And you're exactly right.
It's absolutely wonderful that way.
It's a great way if you're dealing with the APIs to start to extract that information.
I always love it when customers are willing to share that URL as well, right? Oftentimes they say, I'm having troubles with this device, and we can find it by MAC really fast, right? We can find it by the device name. But if they just share the URL, right, there's no doubt in my mind which device they're talking about. It sends me right to where it's at on the list. Right. You mentioned the mobile app as well, and I am so glad we have one of those. I have done full customer reviews across our mobile app, right? Where I've been out and about somewhere, a customer said, hey, I'm having this trouble. I'll, go in, take a look at their sites that way. It's fantastic.
Yeah, our customers, they're not always just sitting behind a desk, right? They're usually on site, or they may be dealing with other problems. When an issue comes up, right, they need to power cycle or change things, and that mobile app's a beautiful way to do it. Right? Bobby, you fixed your camera. Good job, man. So debugging at its finest. That was excellent. What's your thoughts on this, right? Is there a browser that you, or a form of our application that works better? How do you use it?
I usually just end up using the web app. I think mostly just because I'm used to it and kind of stuck in my ways, maybe. But I actually just re-downloaded the desktop app and started using that yesterday, and it was actually, yes, a little bit faster. So I think I'm gonna start using that a little bit more going forward. But I'd say the mobile app has really been amazing. 'Cause I've used that to troubleshoot some issues when I've been on vacation or something, and it's made it super convenient. But then also when we've gone to like trade shows and conferences, if I'm just kind of walking around looking at the other vendors and come across somebody I know or they've heard about us or something, I can just open up my phone and show them, here's what you can do with Domotz. I don't have to bring my laptop along with me or drag it back to the booth. I can just show them on my phone. So it's
Yeah.
really convenient in more, let's say, real world scenarios. We've had a lot of people tell us, yeah, we sent a tech on site. They had issues with their laptop or something, so they just pull out their phone and they can figure out where the problem device was, what it was connected to, and never needed to open the laptop or figure out what was wrong with it. So it's makes it a lot more convenient, I think.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I will say there's been plenty of times, and this is going to show the nerd that I am, right? I've got a video distribution system in my house, and it's all over, network switches and stuff. But lo and behold, that system inevitably will fail, right? And I have to power cycle one of the decoders in my living room because I just got a text from my wife saying, "Hey, TV's broken," right? So I use that mobile app no matter where I am in the world, right, to solve my wife's TV problem. So yeah, I get it. I get it. Let's see. Let me ask another question here. And Bobby, I think you framed this up, and I like this, right? We talk about networking, network monitoring, right? Monitoring the network infrastructure. We talk about visibility into all of these devices, but you often get questions too about how do I monitor? I'm going to phrase this up in two ways, right? How do I monitor from one site to another within a customer environment, kind of a site to site or subnet monitoring? But then there's also this aspect around websites, right, that we can do, right? External hosts. How do you address that? Do you mind speaking to that a little bit?
Yeah, so with like it's an environment where you have multiple sites connected with VPNs, site-to-site VPNs, or SD-WAN, or whatever it may be. We have that routed networks option, and in a lot of cases, I always recommend it's best to put an agent or collector at all sites. You'll get the most information out of Domotz, all the bells and whistles, everything. But there can be situations where if you use the routed networks for, let's say you put a collector in the main site or headquarters, add the VPN connected site through the routed networks, then you can get some of that, let's say more, uh, let's say status information, IP address monitoring, where maybe you just need up and down status of the site or some endpoints in that environment. I think it's really good kind of use of those routed networks. And then when it comes to like website monitoring, we have a couple, well, I guess website and external hosts. So you have the option of that external host and IP address monitoring, and I've added like, if I'm sure there's a few of you on here that I've done onboardings for. You'll see in my site I have the Google DNS servers. We have a lot of people that do this for other public IPs they want to monitor or popular cloud services that their clients use or whatever it may be. But an easy way to really quickly and easily check to see the status of that system, whatever it is, set alerts on it if it ever goes down or if the connection performance is degrading. And then more on kind of website monitoring, you have that option too, but we also have that custom integration or driver for the website performance monitoring and the SSL certificate checks. So you can get a lot more, let's say, I guess, actionable information so you can better kind of pinpoint what the issue is and I don't know how to resolve it. So and that's, I think, these are another thing. There's a lot of ways you can use Domotz to approach situations in multiple different ways. There isn't just one way to accomplish a lot of things. There's usually a few ways.
Yeah, the points you're making about the first of all, just being able to ping hosts, external hosts from the point of view of the collector, right, in the network is extremely valuable. But I'm really glad you mentioned the custom scripts because we do have things like SSL checks, right? And these are, by the way, these are scripts that you can go in and modify. It's very easy for you to, one, check the validity of a script, right? Understand the expiration date, And then 30, 60, 90 days beforehand, whatever you want, generate an alert before that expiration so that way you have time to prepare for it. To me, that's one way in which those scripts are so extremely valuable to people. Rory, what's your thoughts on this? What have you seen when it comes to implementing this?
I think using it as a second brain is a huge benefit for a lot of customers. You're talking about like the script ability to go through and just, send yourself an alert and everything. There are a lot of cases, right, where our MSPs are trying to do so many hats, right? They've just matured past that break fix, but that means that they're still hosting most of the items themselves. And, depending on their background, right, they might have a hardware background, they might have a technician background instead of, web hosting and everything. I mean, it depends on what you see in your stack today, but just setting up it as a second brain, right? Put those alerts out there and everything. Start using them to track the other things will just help you keep on top. I love that usage as they go across.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. So we got a question. There was a comment from Paul, and I think it got answered, but I wanna bring it up because I actually saw this on another question that we got, which was, how do we get a hold of you guys, right? How can some of these guys make sure that they're talking to our team? I'm going to make the comment that first and foremost, support@domotz.com is the right place to reach out to. But if you want to have an onboarding call, if you want to talk more specifically about things like our APIs or how to utilize those, we're here for you and we will help you with that. Rory, for you, what's your thoughts on the best way to get a hold of you or other team members?
So oftentimes the very best way is to be part of the channel partner program, right? There's some options built in for that one. That aside, right? I mean, we might talk more on that in a little bit, but that aside, the support channel is a wonderful way. I mentioned at the start, right, that I love working at Domotz because the people here, our support team is just really, really well. They're just experts at what they do. And so oftentimes, if it would be better to have an onboarding call, they're very fast to help send out the calendar links for me or Bobby across, right? They'll connect us through, make sure that the correct information's there. I oftentimes pick them up from there as well. Occasionally, you can catch me in the chat, and I will respond with links. I've had a couple of API calls directly from the chat options that we have from the agent. Not a bad way, but that support, definitely the best way to go. You'll get to the right person, the right expert for the process.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I'm going to touch on the channel.
Sorry for interrupting from the backend. We got some user experience issue with the video. I mean, we are only streaming your faces, but it's nice to see you guys. But these users are having issue with that. Probably you can try to restart the webcam or something. I don't know.
You can look at that. Make sure that we're sharing. Yeah. Thanks, Giancarlo, for mentioning that. Let's see what we get here if we share our webcam again. Hopefully that helps a little bit. Bless GoToWebinar. So in our final question, I do want to, I think, Bobby, Rory answered that really well about getting to us. He brought up the channel partner program, and I know that a lot of people have asked about this as well. Rory, you're getting in on a lot of calls. I do want to address the benefits of the channel partner program and why we think people should join that. One, to your point, Rory, is about support, right? You guys are service providers. We think you should be our partners. We, and Rory, you said this earlier, Bobby, you've mentioned this too, right? We really need to act like partners, and this channel partner program has helped to do that. There's absolute benefits when it comes to volume-based discounting and things like that, but there's also a channel for you, right? When you are part of our DCPP, right, our Domotz Channel Partner Program, and you do email our support team, on the back end side, we have notes on that and things get escalated. So if you haven't joined the Channel Partner Program, by all means do that, because that just benefits you as well. So please feel free to join that. We are out of time on this. I am super grateful for you, Rory, and you, Bobby, for being on this with us. Next quarter, I think we're going to introduce a couple other team members, probably somebody from the support, somebody from the sales team as well, and we will we'll get to even more questions that we have. Thank you everybody for answering all the questions that are asking all the questions. Bobby, Rory, thanks for answering those. Any other parting thoughts that you have?
Oh, you can't put me on the spot like that. This was great. And yeah, if anybody needs anything or has any questions, definitely reach out to sales and support at domotz.com. We're always happy to help.
Yeah, Rory?
The only parting thought on my side is that I absolutely love one of the benefits of the channel partner program is I've been hearing more customer success stories from our customers, right? If I'm only wandering through the support channel, we get those occasionally, but please send those in. Those make my job so wonderful, right? To hear the use cases where customers have done amazing things or have just had Domotz save their bacon. Those things are wonderful. Share those. They make my job wonderful.
Good. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you on our next webinar. Thank you.